started with. Okay. So we are now doing day 18, which is the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is our final session for our level 1 Gita Gyan Essence of the Bhagavad Gita course. So it's an essence. So basically, we have several different levels of studying the Bhagavad Gita. Normally, we have a course called Bhakti Shastri course. So that one, it's like a 6-month study of the Bhagavad Gita. It's very in-depth course. It's like a once-a-week class, but that's not something which we do right now for us. But I'm just saying that we have this kind of courses in the future. But for now, this is level 1 essence. So it's just to give you an understanding, and we will finish this today. And then we will talk about level 2 after the end, at the end of this. So dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatadine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, Sri Sri Nitai Sundar Gaura Hari, and this is Sri Sri Radha Madhava. So they are the presiding deities of ISKCON Q in Ukraine. So I sent a video clip today to show the opening temple of the opening of the, it's the installation of the deities. It was in 2018. So this is, it's for many years, devotees have been preaching in these different countries. So now finally we are able to see the fruits of all this. So it all came from the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And the temple in Ukraine is actually one of the biggest temples in Europe. Actually, it is the biggest Hindu temple in Europe. So this is also the same Sri Sri Radha Madhava deities in Ukraine. They're very sweet. So we will start Gita Mahatmya. Yatra Gita Vicharascha Pathanam Tatha Modate Tatra Sri Krishna Bhagavan Radhaya Saha. With supreme ecstasy, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and his divine consort Sri Radhika are graciously present wherever the conception of the Gita scripture is discussed, studied, and taught. So just like how Ramayana is, wherever Ramayana is spoken and heard, it is said that Hanuman comes there in the presence of everybody just to hear this Ramayana being spoken. And in the same way, wherever Bhagavad Gita is spoken and recited or discussed, even conceptually, so then the presence of the Lordship, Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, it manifests within our minds. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Viknaminasha Narasimhaiti Namine Mukham Paroti Vachalam Pangom Langayatim Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyam Ishwaram Om Tat Sat. So we will recap yesterday, chapter 17, entitled The Divisions of Faith, right? And over there, we talked about the three modes. So we introduced in the three modes in more detail, how these three modes affect various activities. So Arjuna was asking, he was very worried about the people in Kali Yuga especially. So what about those people who are going to do activities without following the scripture? Okay, I understand that is the mode of ignorance, but what about faith? Faith is supposed to be the mode of goodness. And then if one follows faith without referring to scripture, what about those people? So then Krishna starts to talk about faith and how faith is also in the three modes. So everything in this material world is within the three modes. And like this, he will discuss various aspects, and he will continue this discussion to chapter 18 as well. So we discussed yesterday austerities in the mode, faith in the three modes, austerities, food, sacrifices, charity within the three modes, and how Krishna tells Arjuna we need to go beyond the three modes. So we should come to the platform of the mode of goodness, and then from the mode of goodness we can step up to transcendence. So how to do that transcendence? So transcendence means one begins yoga with the understanding that all these activities, action, and everything, it is done simply for the sake of duty, that is following the jnana path, where we begin karma yoga, or we dovetail it and direct it for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So that is in the bhakti path. So we do these activities, transcendental activities, we do this with this consciousness, and we utter this word Om Tat Sat at the end of all these activities, austerities, food, sacrifices, charity. So we say Om Tat Sat to remind us that this is all for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. And it's not for our own fruitive desires or something which we are looking forward to in return. So it is done simply as duty and pleasure for the Lord. So the takeaway, faith, food, sacrifice, austerity, and charities in the three modes, transcend the three modes with Om Tat Sat. Then we are now coming to the last chapter today, chapter 18. So chapter 18 carries on with these three modes discussion a little further until it goes to a certain text towards the end part, and then Krishna starts to summarize. He starts to summarize the entire Bhagavad Gita of what was spoken to Arjuna. So we will try to cover these things today. So it's entitled Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. So moksha means liberation, and sannyasa means renouncing the activity. So both we will hear about this. What is this sannyasa, and what is Krishna's opinion about sannyasa, and ultimately to go beyond, to go to the point of liberation and beyond. So we've heard how the conditioned jivas within this material world, there are two categories, the divine and the demoniac. This was chapter 16, right? And amongst those who are basically, the divine here means those who are trying to follow the instructions of the Lord. That means they are trying and they may be trying to enjoy, or they may be yogis, but either way they are doing it in line with the Lord, because the Lord knows amongst those who are obedient, there are two types also. So one who are obedient because at the same time they still want to enjoy their senses. They still want to have desires. So these are the fruitive workers. And then there are also the renunciates, or those who are looking into liberation from the cycle of birth and death without desire for fruitive activity. So in chapter 17, the three modes basically revolve around fruitive activities. And the person who wants to be the transcendentalist or the spiritualist, he will need to go beyond the three modes. So we will go a bit more into this in chapter 18. So it begins like this. Arjuna uvacha sanyasasya mahabaho tattvam ichchami veditum tyagasya cha hrishikesha prittak keshi nisudana. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, Mahabaho, O killer of the Kesi demon, Kesi Nisudana, and master of the senses, Hrishikesha. These are all names of the Lord. I wish to understand, number one, the purpose of renunciation. So, Tyaga. So, what is Tyaga? What's the purpose behind Tyaga? Tyaga, so he's trying to understand why should people renounce the fruit, all right? So, the purpose of renunciation. Ultimately, by renouncing, what do we get? Do we lose everything? And then number two, he's asking, what is the difference between renunciation, the Tyaga, and doing nothing, becoming a sannyasi, renounced order of life, taking up sannyasa? So what's the difference between these two? So then Krishna will respond in verse 2. He will talk about what is first of all Tyaga. So Tyaga is giving up what? Giving up the fruits of all activities. So we have been singing this song since chapter 3, since chapter 2 actually, and how we should have this idea of giving up the fruits of activities. So if we give up these fruits of activities, does that mean we are not doing activity? No, we are still doing activity, but we give up the fruits of activity. So this is called Tyaga, and is also known as one who is fixed in Tyaga with determination. He is known as a karma yogi. Okay, and then Krishna defines what is sannyasa. Sannyasa means giving up, not giving up the fruits. Sannyasa means giving up activities itself, the entire action, the activity one gives up. So a sannyasi will be prohibited from doing certain things. Like he cannot have family, a sannyasi cannot be seen working, a sannyasi cannot be earning money. So these kind of activities which are considered materialistic activities, the sannyasis give it up. They don't do it. They are basically socially dead, considered. They don't have any attachment to anyone in this world, and they will do some other activities. So basically nothing material. So that is sannyasa. So Arjuna is thinking, will people think that to become spiritualist, does that mean one have to become a sannyasi? One has to give up everything, all the activities, and simply, go as a renunciate, as a beggar? Is that the meaning of? Is that what ultimately spiritual life is all about? So let's hear Krishna's answer to this question. So then he says, so here I'm just putting down the verses. So we've talked about Tyaga and we've talked about sannyasa. So then the question comes, is it better to renounce? So Krishna begins the conversation by saying that renouncing, sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be given up. So even if one takes up sannyasi, even if one becomes a sannyasi, still Krishna says one should not give up these few activities, even though they may be considered materialistic, fruitive. So sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be given up. So this will continue on even to a renunciate, even for a yogi, even for a bhakta. So these things are to be done, but it has to be done in the mode of goodness. So we have already heard about this. Okay. And then he goes on to say that sannyas itself is in the three modes, 18.7 to 18.10. So some of these we have already discussed in chapter 2, where Krishna tells Arjuna, a person who goes and renounces everything, but he's still mentally thinking about the objects of the senses, he is not going to get anything. So that level of sannyas is something which is further. It is not to be done prematurely. It is to be done only when one comes to the platform of jnana yoga. So this is the jnana path, right? So in that way, one can do this. But then Krishna goes on to say that actually, even better than sannyas is the spirit of renunciation. So one doesn't have to necessarily take sannyas. One can be a household person, householder. One can be a brahmachari. One can be a householder like all of us. But if one can cultivate that mentality or the spirit of renunciation, working, but without the consideration of gain or loss, if such a person can be in that mind frame, then this tyaga is superior to sannyas. Actually, people take sannyas so that they can attain tyaga. The purpose of sannyas is eventually so that one comes to the platform of tyaga. So this is actually sannyas is part of the varnashram, the 4 divisions of society. Like we have brahmachari, student life, then grihastha, married life or responsible life. Then after that, there is retired life, vanaprastha. And then vanaprastha is eventually building up to full renunciation, and that is sannyas. But the sannyas should have the mentality of tyaga. So he practices sannyas in his ashram so that he can attain tyaga. But Krishna is telling Arjuna, you don't have to go that path. It's not necessary for you to take sannyas. Within in any of the ashram, bhakti is so special that you don't have to follow the sannyas path. But in jnana yoga, one has to do this. If one follows the jnana path, eventually one has to leave everything and go to the forest. And we've heard about that in chapter 6, how one practices dhyana and all these things. But if we follow the bhakti path, it is so versatile that in any of the ashrams, you can practice tyaga. It is the spirit of the tyaga which one should practice, right? Not the bodily action itself. So he says tyaga is superior to sannyas. So therefore he tells Arjuna, that's why he tells Arjuna, so get up and fight. Many times he's been saying this in the chapters, right? So therefore get up and fight, Arjuna. Therefore get up and fight. So he's not telling Arjuna to go and become a renunciate. Because we have understood the purpose of bhakti. Bhakti is, true renunciation is not simply letting go everything. Like sometimes people in the jnana path, they will say, I will not touch money. Or I will not touch this. I will not deal with material things. I will not deal with management and all that kind of things. So that is renunciation, yes. But the completion of renunciation is the concept of how one can use the entire world for the pleasure of the Lord, to attain the goal of the Supreme Lord. So, but he doesn't use it for his own senses. He doesn't use it for his own gratification. Everything can be used. So therefore, in the bhakti path, even sannyasis, they will use handphone, they will use modern conveniences, science is not denied, everything will be used. But it's all catered towards the propagation of the mission of the Lord, which is to give everybody the understanding of devotion, bhakti. So everything, so like how we are using Zoom today. So in this way, we can use computers, we can use Zoom, everything is dovetailed for the pleasure of the Lord. So that is tyaga, and that is superior to sannyas, and that can be done by devotees in any ashram. One can be householder, one can be a wife, one can be a husband, one can be a child, one can be even a retired person, doesn't matter, as long as one cultivates this mentality. So then these are the secrets of action, which we have covered sufficiently already. And then Bhagavad Gita from 1813 to 1822, 1819, he goes on to talk a little bit more about the science of how this action works. Now, chapter 18 has 78 verses, so we will not be covering everything. So since this relates to karma, we will keep this at level 2. So we'll talk about some of these aspects in level 2 in detail about karma. We will refer to some of these. So we will go straight to he talks about the 5 causes of action, and then he talks about the 3 motives of action, and then he speaks about knowledge. So knowledge is also in the 3 modes, and this will be useful for us to understand at this level. So therefore, I'll present to you knowledge in the 3 modes. So we have goodness. So what is considered knowledge in the mode of goodness? So the characteristic is one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all innumerably divided living entities. Now, if you remember chapter 13, we talked about Kshetra, Kshetranya, the place and the field and the lower of the field. And then we talked about, what's the other one? The field and the knower of the field. We talked about knowledge, jnana, and the jnaya, knower of the knowledge. right? And when at that time we defined clearly what is jnana. So jnana means it's defined as knowledge of understanding the difference between matter and spirit. So this is considered knowledge. Anything else outside this sphere, it's considered ignorance. Various types of, though it is some kind of knowledge, but still it's ultimately not going to aid the person to come out of this material world. So it's considered, in the sense of, in that sense, it's still considered ignorance. So since we understand knowledge is the difference between spirit and matter, so knowledge in the mode of goodness is this, to understand the difference between spirit and matter, and to see the divine spark, the presence of the divinity in every living entity. Not only in every living entity, in everywhere. We are able to see the Supreme Lord's presence and splendor and his vibhuti, his expansions in every situation. Anything that's beautiful, anything that's strong, anything that's wonderful, it's all basically splendor of the Supreme Lord. And we can remember the sun, the moon, the earth, the different types of animals. You know, we've seen amongst the beasts, I'm the lion, amongst the devas, I'm Indra. So in this way, we can see the expansions of the Lord in every single existence. So one undivided spiritual nature. Why it's one undivided? Because he is ultimately Bhagavan, the one single personality. And he expands himself, though he's one, he expands himself into the Paramatma expansion. So understanding this is knowledge in the mode of goodness. So then what is mode of passion then? So knowledge in the mode of passion is, in every different body, there is a different type of living entity. So here, the person discriminates. He starts differentiating. He doesn't want to unify. He doesn't want to think collectively. He wants to separatist. So this is mode of passion type of knowledge. They will distinct, you know, my family, your family, right? So in the mode of goodness, it is Vasudeva Kudumbakam. This entire world is Krishna's family. That is the mode of goodness. Whereas in the mode of passion, we differentiate. You, me, I will keep separately. You will have different idea. So that is the mode of passion. So in every different body, there is a different type of living entity. So this creates problem, because the very nature of the mode of passion, once we break up into teams, once we break up into groups, once we break up into, there will always be competitive spirit, right? So, you know, when we are all one, but when we have teams within the same place, then there will be a competition. And sometimes when the people are immature, the competition will degrade to fights. So, and especially when there is desperation, when there is fight over resources, competition over resources, competition over desires, objects of desires, then there will be fights. So that's why Prabhupada likes to say, you know, the dog thinks he's a dog and the cat thinks he's a cat, and therefore they fight. So if human beings also think in the same way, right? I'm Chinese or you're Indian, and therefore we will fight. So we are different, you are different. So then it's definitely mode of passion. And then we also have the mode of ignorance. So the characteristic is one who is attached to one kind of work as the all in all. So it's interesting, Krishna defines like this. So knowledge in the mode of ignorance means that they only know this only. Like, for example, some people are trained as a, let's say, a businessman. They know how to make money. So they only know how to make money. They don't know how to do anything else. And if they ever get into retirement, then that's the end of their life. They don't know what to do. Their mentality starts to degrade. And this is all they know how to do. So one is attached to one kind of work, and he thinks that that's the ultimate, that's the all in all, and he doesn't want to think about anything else. So this is knowledge in the mode of ignorance. And knowledge without knowledge of the truth, which is very meager. So lack of knowledge is also there, and without understanding the ultimate truth. That means various grades of illusion, accepting rumor as truth, accepting things which are not directly proven as truth. So these are all mode of ignorance. So action and worker in the three modes. Then Krishna goes on, after knowledge, he talks about action in the three modes and the worker in the three modes. Activities in three modes and the worker, the person doing the work in the three modes. So in the mode of goodness, action, regulated. So this is very important point. Regulation. So when we regulate ourselves in our activities, like our daily regulation, you know, we wake up at a certain time, we eat at a certain time, we sleep at a certain time, and then like that, this is called regulation. So this is considered in the mode of goodness. Performed without attachment. So this is, we have made that clear many times. Without love or hatred. So without too much, you know, people are very common to say nowadays, I have passion in my work. I'm doing this passionately. So yes, it's definitely passion. So Krishna is saying, if we talk like that, then that is mode of passion. Later he will mention. So we have to do it indifferently, right? Without love or hatred. So this is called yoga. Yoga is all about balance. So because either way is capable of trapping our consciousness. So if we do an activity simply because we love to do the activity, right? That means that is karma kanda. We are having some kind of, we are deriving some kind of pleasure out of this. But if we do it as, we may love it, we may like to do the work, right? But we must learn to tolerate happiness and distress. Krishna says in chapter 2 itself, there is one verse, Matra sparsastu kaunteya sitoshana sukha dukkada. So at that time, we understood, you know, yeah, we are talking about killing. So therefore we thought, okay, one should tolerate happiness and distress. We didn't think too much about happiness. We thought about distress. Yes, when distress comes, we should tolerate. So now we can understand more deeper about what it means to tolerate happiness. So happiness is also something we should tolerate. That means we don't get carried over with it. We don't let that happiness dictate our thoughts or dictate our decision. Just because we enjoy doing some activity, let's say there are two duties, right? One duty we enjoy, one duty we don't like, but both also are necessary. So we should not be partial. We should do what is necessity, what is the necessity, without considering happiness or distress, simply for the sake of duty, without considering love or hatred, without desire for fruitive results. So this is mode of goodness. And the type of worker who performs this kind of activity, he does his duty without false ego. That means he doesn't include ego into the picture. Oh, I will do it because I am great. So, you know, so this is all about me, I. So ego is not in the picture. And he does it with great determination and enthusiasm without wavering in success or failure. So then one might say, you know, how to have great determination without expecting the results of fruits, or how to have great determination and enthusiasm without passion, without love. We love something, we will do something better. Yes, that is in the mode of passion, but this is something higher. This one, whether we like it or we don't like it, we will perfectly do our duty with the best of our ability for the pleasure of the Lord. So that is even higher. So sometimes we may not be able to understand this, but by performing the yoga practices or by performing bhakti yoga, simply by the process of doing bhakti yoga, we will automatically come to this platform. Example, right? We have, you know, the Pandavas. The Pandavas will do everything Krishna will tell them, whether it is happiness or distress. You know, Yudhishthira Maharaj knew that if he entered that gambling match, he will be cheated. It's not that he didn't know, but he was following Dharma, because Dharma says that he has to follow the instructions of his elder. And the king is the Dhritarashtra, and therefore, simply out of respect to follow Dharma, he followed the instructions of Dhritarashtra, who commanded him to follow the gambling, do the gambling, take part in the gambling. And in this way, he lost everything. Of course, this is all arranged by Krishna. He had a purpose to do all these things because he wanted the war to come about. And the gambling match became the focal point on how the war could come up with. But and he knows Yudhishthira Maharaj will not go against Dharma. And Adharma and Dharma, simply by following virtue and Dharma, one is never defeated. One may temporarily look like he has been put in a setback, but ultimately he will attain complete victory. Whereas the person who is looking at temporary results and performing adharma, that person may look like he's enjoying the fruits, but the scriptures say that in the end, he is destroyed to the very root. So in this way, one should maintain in the mode of goodness with great determination and enthusiasm without wavering in success or failure. What about the mode of passion? So this we are all very, we know this mode of passion very well, most of us. Performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and enacted from a sense of false ego. And the worker who's attached to his work and the fruits of his work, who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow. So too much, he's very sentimental and very emotional. So these kind of people are very much in the mode of passion and they get disturbed very easily. So to become too sentimental or emotional, this is not conducive for yoga or bhakti. So it's imbalance of the mind. So again, we cannot artificially do this. If our nature is born like that, we can understand with knowledge what is right and what is wrong, and we try. But what can actually change our temperament is actually the process itself. Simply by chanting, one can one can actually go beyond, transcend these modes and come to the highest mode slowly. Eventually, it will come towards. Example of people like this mode of passion. So you can see Mantara and Kaikeyi. This is Ramayana. When Lord Ram was supposed to be crowned as the king, right? Mantara was very envious. She was very worried about her position. And she was worried about, because her position depends on Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi is not the direct mother of Rama. So if Rama becomes the king, Kaikeyi will not be the favored queen. And if she's not the favored queen, then Mantara, the hunchback, Mantara is the hunchback. You know, we all know about the hunchback. So she will not get her many gifts. So therefore, out of her own personal motivation, she spread poison into Kaikeyi's ears. So this is the people like that who are envious, who are greedy. And then another example is Duryodhana, right? He was always envious of the Pandavas right from day one. He was envious of them and he wanted to take over the kingdom, greedy, when it was not rightfully his. And he used many impure methodologies to achieve his outcome. He tried to do lots of wrong things, adharmic things. And then this is, for example, here we show you the picture of the gambling, right? So this is the problem. Now, the problem with the mode of passion is most of the time, the mode of passion will lead to the mode of ignorance. It never leads one higher. By being in the mode of passion, even for a while, one can never go to the mode of goodness. It will only, and the three modes, if you remember, they never remain the same. They are always fighting for supremacy. So when we are in the mode of passion, it is just a matter of time when we degrade to the mode of ignorance. So that's the danger. So that's why the mode of goodness alone is recommended to be maintained. Because from the mode of goodness, we can transcend. From the mode of passion, we cannot transcend. We will only go down to mode of ignorance. And from the mode of ignorance, we go to lower species and we go to hell. So if we want to transcend, we must build our life around the mode of goodness by first understanding what is in the mode of goodness, and then following the processes given in the yoga or in the bhakti path, so that it will bring us to that platform. And from there, we can transcend. So in the mode of passion, right? In the mode of ignorance, this is the result eventually from the mode of passion. If we go down to this, right? And the action is performed in illusion without understanding what is right and what is wrong, in disregard of scriptural injunctions, without concern for future bondage, without what we are not worried about what it's going to do to us in the future, right? Or harm caused to others. They don't care what kind of harm it's going to be visited on other people. So this is action in the mode of ignorance, selfish. Whereas the worker who is doing this kind of activities, worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of scripture, who is materialistic, so they do not understand about the spirit. They think that this world and these senses are the only thing to be attained, right? Who are obstinate in this understanding. No matter how much of instruction is given to them, they will never accept. Who like to cheat, they will beg, borrow, or steal just to get their desires satisfied. And the world may be damned for it. So they do not care. An expert in insulting others. This is interesting also. So this is the type of people who are in the mode of ignorance. They are very expert. I know some people, even they are very knowledgeable in spiritual matters sometimes, but they are covered by the mode of, they are covered by their ego. So it brings them to very proud level. So, and they find ways to insult different people using the scriptures also. So this is how Maya tricks people in different ways. So we should always be vigilant, stand guard, and we should always introspect our own heart. And that is why it's necessary to be under the guidance of a guru. So he can tell us where we go wrong. And who is lazy, always morose and procrastinating. They don't like to get things done. A lot of inertia. Always say tomorrow, next year, next time. They don't like to do things immediately to get things settled. So this is the characteristics. Example, right? So remember when I mentioned how Mantara in Ramayana, the hunchback, she made that due to the mode of passion, she instigated Kaikeyi to raise the two boons which she got from Dasharath once. And what she did with that boon, because of this mode of passion and fear, mode of ignorance, she requested that Bharatan should be king, her own son, although he is much younger, against scriptural injunctions. So that is mode of ignorance. And on top of that, to make sure that he is not challenged to his rule, that Rama should go to the forest. So this is mode of passion. And the result of this mode of passion activity, it led to complete destruction of the kingdom. Dasharath, he died. Eventually he died out of heartbreak. He couldn't do anything. And Kaikeyi and all, they were extremely sad and they were crying. And this is what happened. Whereas Ramachandra, you see, even though that he didn't consider whether he's happy or distressed or whether it's right, whether he loves it or he doesn't love it. As long he considered only duty. The duty is my father's word should not be broken. So no matter what happens, because he's a king and the king's word cannot be broken. Otherwise he will lose all respect in the kingdom. So this is to that extent he showed. And therefore, as a perfect son, just to keep the word of honor of his father, he was willing to go to the forest for 14 years, exile. Even though Dasharath begged him, please, don't go. This is the request, I take it back. He cried like that, but Rama said, I cannot not keep your word. So it's not that he was happy to go. So he didn't consider happiness or distress. He only considered duty. So this is action in the mode of goodness. It's very high-minded. So it takes some understanding for us to come to this level. And it can be done by practicing bhakti. Another example, after the gambling in the Kauravas and the Pandavas, they had this gambling match. And that was in the mode of passion, right? They were gambling and it was a trick. It was actually rigged, the gambling, and Shakuni was meant to win. And Dhritarashtra used his position, he abused his position as a leader and as a king to forcefully command Yudhishthira Maharaj to abide by the gambling. And out of obedience, instead of going against it, they knew what's going to happen. But still, for the sake of dharma, whether considering happiness or distress, they followed their duty. So in this way, they were completely anyway, what happened, what transpired. But in the long run, it was the Pandavas who actually became the kings and the rulers of the world. And on top of that, they pleased the Supreme Lord by their activities, by never deviating from virtue or dharma. So as a result of that gambling match, what happened? It descended to the mode of ignorance. Draupadi was staked and she was lost. And simply to insult the Pandavas, this is the burning, the Kauravas waited for years. They plotted behind the back. Duryodhana, Karna, and all these people, they plotted behind the back in so many ways to kill them, to rob them of their kingdom in so many ways. And they were very jealous about Draupadi being the wife of the 5 Pandavas. And this was their chance. So just to push the poison deeper into the hearts of the Pandavas, they purposely wanted to insult Draupadi and they wanted to disrobe her in public just to see the reaction. Okay, you are so dharmic, you're so wonderful. Let's see to how far you are going to push the dharma. So this is how it descended to the mode of ignorance. And that one act of them doing this to Draupadi, though she was protected by the Lord, by the very act that they did this in the assembly of the entire kingdom, therefore they were all condemned to be killed. That's and Mahabharata war took place and everybody was destroyed. So this is the plan of the Lord, right? So eventually the mode of passion will lead to the mode of ignorance, and the mode of ignorance will lead to complete destruction. So then we also have understanding in the 3 modes. So what is understanding in the 3 modes? So this is mode of goodness. What is understanding in the mode of goodness? By which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. So we need to understand clearly discriminative power. This is the power of discrimination. Very, very important in humans, right? So intelligence is simply not having knowledge or having information. It's about what we do with that information. How do we know the difference between information? So, and it also means about prioritizing what information is more important, which is more important to be done first. So that is real intelligence. It's not simply memory. Memory is one small part of it, and knowledge is one small part of it. But discrimination is very, very important to understand when to apply what and what is right and what is not correct in each and every circumstances, and also to understand the priority of the order. So this is understanding in the mode of goodness. What is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, to understand these things carefully. So it's not so easy to come to this level, right? So that's why taking the spiritual master will help us to understand what is right and what is wrong based on scriptural understanding. He is expert and he will be able to guide. And then we have the mode of passion, by which understanding in the mode of passion, that understanding by which one cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion, between action and what should be done and action that should not be done. So here, most of us, we will be usually oscillating between these two. Sometimes we will know what's to be done and sometimes we won't know what's to be done. So it's oscillating between goodness and passion, right? But ignorance is completely opposite. To consider irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion, completely opposite, right? Under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction. So this is mode of ignorance, to always think the wrong thing as the right thing to be done, right? So some people, they have this kind of mentality. They purposely do bad things because they feel this is the right thing to do. So they are so full of their conviction. So anyway, so this is the understanding in the mode of ignorance. And then Krishna goes on to talk about determination. What about determination in the three modes? So determination in the mode of goodness, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice or bhakti, which thus controls controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses. So the determination here, one is able to control the mind, his senses, and his activities, and it is deep rooted based on the practice of transcendence, bhakti or yoga, and this brings forth to unwavering determination. One doesn't get easily dissuaded. So just like how Prabhupada, when he went to the West, nothing was able to dissuade him. He was old, 68 years old, and he had no money, 40 rupees only when he left on the Jaladuta. And there was every reason for him not to go. At his age, one can justify in different ways, right? But for the pleasure of his guru and to take up the order of his Guru Maharaj, and yet he was dissuaded. He was dissuaded by Sumati Murarji, the owner of the shipping company. She told him many times. 3 times he came and 3 times he was dissuaded. So one could just, okay, Krishna, okay, Guru, I tried, but, it's so difficult, understand. So give me something else. So, but Prabhupada was fixed in his determination. He had strong faith, born out of bhakti. Out of strong bhakti, his determination was unwavering. So therefore, he was able to achieve what he was able to achieve. So this is determination in the mode of goodness. So in our aspect, for example, we are all going to begin with bhakti. So we can begin that chanting process, taking up the chanting and never giving it up, taking a vow to follow certain rounds and to increase those rounds eventually. We should have a scheme of how to do that and eventually come to the point of surrender to the Supreme Lord. So then we have determination in the mode of passion, by which one holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification. So he becomes a miser. He becomes a workaholic, right? He's very determined to make money. He's very determined to make success. So there are many people like this in this world. They are very determined to achieve materialistic success. But when it comes to spiritual activities, that same determination which drove them, it doesn't sustain. So that is the point here, determination in the mode of passion. And finally, determination in the mode of ignorance. So actually, there is no determination. In the mode of ignorance, what to speak of determination? There is no determination. Simply, it is all daydreaming. It is all mental. One likes to sit and dream. I will do this, I will do that, I will do that. But then it's never reality. They will talk a lot, they will dream a lot, but they will never be able to put it into action. So that is determination in the mode of ignorance, which cannot go beyond dreaming. It is driven by fearfulness. Fear is the motivating factor. They do what they do, they are determined to do what they are doing because out of fear. And then lamentation, out of sadness, out of disturbance, they're always lamenting, that kind of determination. Moroseness and illusion. So these are the motivating factors for these people. So therefore, this is called determination in the mode of ignorance. So then we have, so we've talked about these things. So now let me just summarize here the subsections within the Gita in chapter 18. So we talked about understanding and determination. We talked about buddhi. Buddhi means understanding. And we talked about determination, dhrite, in the three modes. And now Krishna goes on to happiness in the three modes. Ultimately, one comes to the point of happiness within the three modes. So, sukham, what is happiness is called sukham in Sanskrit. So happiness in the mode of goodness, the characteristic is, this is very important for us to understand. I've mentioned this before also. So here where it appears in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 18, 36 to 39. Happiness in the mode of goodness. Look at the characteristic. In the beginning, it may be like poison, but nectar at the end. So this is happiness which will come from the mode of goodness. It is lasting. It will last longer, right? And it awakens one to self-realization. This is happiness in the mode of goodness. So a lot of these activities may sound difficult, like chanting, like getting up early in the morning, like following the do's and don'ts and like following eating prasadam and things like that. So, or reading the scriptures, trying to understand the scriptures. So this may sound like austerity, difficult in the beginning, but it will lead to happiness. It will lead to, it's like poison in the beginning, but eventually it becomes nectar, and it is awakening to self-realization. And then we have happiness in the mode of passion. This is very important for us to understand also. Characteristic, derived from contact of the senses with their objects. So anything that has to do with the senses and their objects, this kind of happiness which we get out of that is in the mode of passion. So senses means tongue, hearing, eyes, touch, so smell. So this is basically sense pleasures. So happiness which comes out of sense pleasure, it's basically mode of passion. It appears like nectar first, but poison at the end. Now this is not difficult for us to understand also, isn't it? So we like to see the screen, the TV screen, but we cannot see the TV screen for too long. It's bad for our eyes. So it's like nectar in the beginning, but poison in the end. Or food is like tasty in the beginning. We like to eat. But if we eat all the wrong food, eventually it becomes poison in the end. So like that. Or sex pleasure. This is another one which comes as the passion. It's nectar in the beginning, but eventually it is poison in the end. It causes degradation of the spirit. It destroys the principle of cleanliness, and in such a person, self-realization cannot awaken. So it has to be regulated. Gambling. So as I mentioned previously, gambling can lead to all kinds of, it eventually leads to the mode of ignorance. Very quickly it leads to the mode of ignorance. And then we have happiness in the mode of ignorance. The type of activities people like to be happy about, blind to self-realization, completely in ignorance, delusion from beginning to end, right? So example, nowadays people like to, they escape. It's like escapism. Watching TV, this is an example of happiness in the mode of ignorance, because we escape our material world, we escape our reality, and we put our mind, fully immerse ourselves into non-reality, into serials and all that. So yeah, it should be controlled very much, right? And we should eventually give it up and come to the mode of goodness. Playing computer games, virtual reality, these things are very addictive, right? Are they not addictive? So how to ask ourselves, as long as these things are addictive, we can understand these are happiness from the mode of ignorance. Is delusion from beginning to end, arises from sleep, laziness, illusion. Basically, it comes from escapism, trying to escape the material world, the situation. So it is not conducive for self-realization. A yogi or a serious devotee will try to minimize this, and at the same time follow the process of spiritual life, and that will automatically give us the higher taste. How to give up these things? If we are attached to these things, it's not easy to give these things up. So the point here is we cannot give them up to become empty. It's not possible, right? So it may be possible. The jnana path goes in that direction, but it's very difficult. So the bhakti path is very nice because we replace a lower taste with a higher taste. In that way, we can give up. So when we can replace something which is low with a higher taste, right? So then we can give up the lower taste easily. For example, we are attached to eating a certain type of things which are not good for us. Okay. So if we can learn to find alternatives to bad food, we find good food, alternatives to it, and we can learn to train ourselves to like those type of food, then we can eventually give up the bad food, right? So in that way, we let go the lower taste. Before we let go, we attach ourselves to something higher, and slowly the higher taste will overwhelm, and then the lower taste, with some determination, we can give it up. So that is how it works in bhakti. So by attaching ourselves to Krishna and his service and his in all the aspects of devotion, we will learn to develop the higher taste. And with that higher taste, we can very easily give up the lower things. So that's how it works. So then we talked about, so we've spoken about the three modes and how it works in the different aspects like knowledge, action, worker, and determination, right? So then Krishna also goes on to talk about the three modes in the four aspects of society. You know, earlier in one of the earlier chapters, we talked about the Varnashram very briefly. Four aspects of society. You know, we have the Brahmana, we have the Kshatriya, we have basically the intelligent class of people in this world, and we also the visionaries. I wouldn't say intelligent and vision, with vision, those who are able to make clear determination, those who are able to make clear distinction between what is right and what is wrong based on scriptural understanding. So and even if it's not scripture, even materialistically, we have these kind of categories in society, whether it's acknowledged or not acknowledged. There will always be visionary people, philosophies and visionaries and scientists and thinkers. There will always be managers, those who are controllers and managers and commanders. And there will always be profit driven people and supporters and nurturers, right? These are the Vaishyas. And there will always be those who are assisting, those who are serving, assisting. They are also artisans. So these will all come under the Shudra category. So these four we will not cover today about how the three modes works in these four divisions of society. We will speak about these four divisions in detail in level 2. So we will skip this aspect and we will come straight. So once this is done, from 18 all the way to 1849, Krishna speaks about these three modes. And then he starts to wrap up. So he again talks about the goal of all these things. He reminds Arjuna, the three modes is not the ultimate thing. The three modes is just a platform to stand on the mode of goodness, to bring ourselves to the mode of goodness, and from the mode of goodness to go to the ultimate goal, to reach out for the ultimate goal. Standing on the mode of goodness, we reach to the ultimate goal. And what is that goal? That goal is called prayojan. Prayojan means goal in Sanskrit, right? The objective, the object. So then Krishna talks, he says here, he again describes the three levels of the spiritual realization, the three levels of God understanding the Supreme Person. The first level is Brahman, 1850 to 54. We won't cover that again because we've already mentioned this several times. And then he talks about Paramatma, which is higher than the Brahman realization. And then he finally speaks about Bhagavan, about himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of the Paramatma, and the source of the Brahman. So, and then he again tells Arjuna, follow the bhakti path. This is my recommendation for you and for everyone in this Kali Yuga specifically. So he speaks about the means and the goal of action from 1850 to 58. And then finally, this is the final conclusion. from 1859 all the way to the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita, right? It's all about conclusion of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So let us go through these verses. They're very, very wonderful verses here. So it begins with this. Krishna addresses Arjuna's original dilemma. You know, Arjuna didn't want to fight, right? Because he was under illusion and everything. So Krishna will tell Arjuna, if you do not act according to my direction, then you will be falsely directed. And by your nature, you will also have to engage in warfare. So under illusion, you are declining to not act according to my directions. So, and then he goes on to this verse, 1861. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. So again, he's summarizing chapter 2. So it's like, you know, chapter 2, we learned about the soul, and we also learned about the super soul, Paramatma. So in this way, we are sitting in the, we are like the soul is like the driver in the car, right? So here he's using the example of a machine. Just like how the living entity is, the machine is being made to move by somebody, the living entity. So in the same way, O Arjuna, the Supreme Lord is directing also all the wanderings. According to our desire, according to our karma, automatically we are getting our dues. So in this way, the whole world is maintained, and it's the whole world is turning, all the planets are turning by the will of the Lord. And then he says, O scion of Bharata, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. So he's telling Arjuna to surrender to that supreme personality who is in everybody's heart. And then he tells that I am that person who is in everybody's heart ultimately. I am that Bhagavan. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. So now see what he says here. Deliberate on this fully and then do what you wish to do. So he gives that free will to the jivas. The Supreme Lord always gives the free will to the living entities. He never forces. He gives instructions, he gives advice, he shows, he tells, he advises in various ways, but he never forces, because that's not how bhakti works. The Supreme Lord, we are like that. The ultimately, the jivas have the free will. So then, very beautiful verses. Now Krishna, he was telling, he was basically giving over here instructions for all living entities. So these are instructions for everyone. So basically he's trying to tell, for everybody, you please learn to understand what is spirit, what is matter, and then try to follow in that direction. And he hints, surrender unto the Supreme Lord, and then decide what you want to do. Now he concludes the most confidential instructions to Arjuna, because Arjuna is a devotee, a bhakta. So therefore, to the bhaktas, he gives even more confidential information, which he described very much in chapter 9 and chapter 10. The summary is being repeated here. Sarva guhya tamam bhuya shrinu me paramam vachaha ishtoyasi me dhrudam iti tato vakshyami te hitam. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. And what is this instruction? Very important verse. Manmana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru mam evaisyashi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Translation. Manmana bhava mad bhakto. Manmana bhava. That means in your mind, always remember me, always think of me. So this is the ultimate goal of the living entity, right? How to do this? Krishna says, Mad Bhakto, become my devotee. If we become his devotee, then automatically this will come very easily. We can attain this. Otherwise, for a non-devotee, this cannot come across. Then for them, the jnana path is given. And from there, eventually by knowledge, they will come to this platform. But Arjuna is already a devotee. So therefore, become my devotee. And this way, one can come to that platform. Then, Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. So what is Madhyaji? So Krishna says over here, worship me and offer your homage unto me. So Madhyaji. Why? It's not that he's desperate for our worship. It's because by worshipping him, we will get benefit. We will get purified. So he's directly telling that do these things for your own benefit, because I have nothing to gain. Krishna already has his own pastimes, his leela in the spiritual world. It is for our benefit that we need to do these things. And offer your homage to me. So we offer our prayers, we offer food to the Lord, not because Krishna is in want of all these things. He has thousands of Lakshmis serving him in the spiritual world. He has millions of devotees with him. So he wants to reclaim us. He wants us to also come back to him so that we don't have to suffer. So therefore, for our benefit, he gives these directions. Worship me and offer me your homage. Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Give me your do your dandavat, fall down and offer your prayers to me. So simply by this act, thousands of sins are being destroyed. So much of purification takes place in our heart. We get so much of blessings, and in this way we can very quickly attain this goal. What is the goal? Always think of me. That's the goal. So this is Krishna is now outlining the process of how to do this, how to come to this goal of always thinking of him. And then he says, Mam evasyasi satyam te pratijane priyo sime. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Priyo, priyam. You are very dear to me, and therefore I promise satyam te. Mam evasyasi satyam te. So that means I promise you that you will come to me. Mam evasyasi, without fail. If one follows these processes under the guidance of the spiritual master in a proper way, we will be able to attain this. So this is Krishna's instruction. Ultimately, he's now concluding. And then he says, 1866, Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaisyami masu chaha. Now this is a very famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Almost everybody knows this verse. It's been put in movies and all that. This is the famous verse where Krishna is demanding the surrender of the jiva. So by surrendering to the Supreme Lord, right, we will be fully benefited, we will be fully taken care of, we will be fully maintained, and we will get our ultimate ananda, bliss, simply by this. And Krishna himself becomes our directly. He have different relationships, very sweet, loving relationships he is able to have with all of us. So what does this verse mean? It all boils down to this: Sarva Dharman Parityaja. The entire point of this Bhagavad Gita, to remember him and everything, it comes with this Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Abandon all varieties of religion. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, even, don't be so disturbed about the so many different paths which are given to you, right? There are so many things mentioned in the Vedas. So now he's saying, don't worry, don't get confused. Many things are saying here and there. So Krishna is saying, simply abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. So don't worry, I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. So if we are worried about sin, if you are worried about any kind of activity, so it's telling Arjuna, you are worried about sin, right? You're worried that I should fight and I will kill and then this will happen. And then you have said that we should avoid sin, we should be careful, we should come to the mode of goodness, we should avoid things in the mode of ignorance. It sounds very difficult. But Krishna is telling, therefore, Arjuna, follow the bhakti path, become my devotee. Therefore, he says, abandon all varieties of whatever instructions and everything else. Simply surrender to me. By following the bhakti path, automatically you will transcend all these things. I shall deliver you by the grace of the Lord. sinful reactions will not touch us. So do not fear. So this is his advice. And then that's the conclusion of, we have covered it. And now Krishna goes on to tell us how we should not keep this knowledge to ourselves. So Krishna says, for one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed. So this is one of the things where we can do as one of the bhakti path. We try to explain this to other people. We try to give this knowledge of the Gita to others. We try to give Bhagavad Gita to other people. And in this way, what will happen? Simply by doing these activities, simply by giving Gita to other people, simply by explaining these things to other people, we are serving the mission of the Supreme Lord. And at the end, he will come back to me. So this is one of the processes of bhakti, right? So therefore, we try to do this. And then in 1869, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he. And what will we get? By someone, if we give this Gita to others, if we somehow try to explain these things to other people, Krishna says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. So therefore, we are trying. So we can all try. We can all help to distribute. That's why Bhagavad Gita distribution is very important. And Prabhupada introduced the Christmas marathon. So in the the Western world, Christmas time is the time when people like to give gifts and everything. So devotees will take these books and will go out distributing these books on Christmas. They will tell people, this is a wonderful gift to give. It talks about the world, the universe, and different things. It talks about yoga. So then the Westerners become very excited, very interested. And in this way, we have given this, millions of Bhagavad Gita has been given to people. And we can all take part in this also. And it is like an excellent gift. I personally give this to people during wedding. Like whenever there is a wedding or something, people like to accept Bhagavad Gita. Even if they don't read it, they keep it in their house. One day they may read it. And Bhagavad Gita is like Krishna himself. So it's practically one of the best gifts. Of course, we don't just give Bhagavad Gita sometimes. We give Gita and then we give something else, give some money with some Gita. So according to our means, but we try to put Gita with everything. So that's in that way we get lots of benefits. The person who gives gets the benefit. The person who receives also gets the benefit. So 1870, and I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So there are different ways we can worship the Lord. And the way we can worship the Lord with our intelligence is by studying this Bhagavad Gita. So you see, it's very, very wonderful. Just by studying this Gita, just keeping the Gita, just giving the Gita is very amazing. And 1871, and one who listens with faith, right? So, and without envy, becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. So just by listening with faith, so that's already so much of pious activity. That it's not pious, it's more than pious, it's spiritual activity. See, I have put many verses in the beginning, right, for all the different classes, showing the glory of simply hearing the Bhagavad Gita, how one can transcend different situations. So the point here is one should do it regularly. So it's, even if it's done once, lots of benefits are there. Definitely we will get a wonderful destination, right? But if we want to go out of this cycle of birth and death, it has to come to the point that we have to remember Krishna always. So that means some kind of regulation. That means some kind of process. And that means following the bhakti path. So therefore, chanting is the main thing, followed by reading the Bhagavad Gita together. So following the instructions of the Lord, which is boils down to bhakti and chanting, and at the same time reading the Bhagavad Gita. In this way, we worship the Supreme Lord. So 1873, Arjuna now Krishna has finished speaking. He has spoken everything already, and he has given Arjuna the choice. And he has given his final conclusion and his final instruction in a nutshell. And now he's telling Arjuna, make your choice, Arjuna. Decide what you like. And what does Arjuna say? My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. So this is what Bhagavad Gita can do for us. By hearing Bhagavad Gita, we can understand what is true and what is not, how the world works, how we can cut out from this material world. I have regained my memory by your mercy. So now he is out of illusion, Arjuna. He understands his position already. I am now firm and free from doubt, and I'm prepared to act according to your instructions. So this is how the devotee can come to this platform. So this is the conclusion, right? We heard about Arjuna's original dilemma, general instructions given to everyone, the free will of the jiva, how the Lord does not force the jivas, right? And we heard about Krishna's, he's trying to coax us to follow the bhakti path quickly. He wants us to come back quickly to his spiritual world. So therefore he says, quickly follow the bhakti path because it's fast, right? And he tells us what to do practically. And then we heard about Arjuna's decision. And then after that, Sanjaya, because if you remember this Bhagavad Gita, it's being, Sanjaya is watching this and he's telling to Dhritarashtra. He's narrating this to Dhritarashtra. And then Sanjaya also will conclude, right? And what is his conclusion? There are 4 verses Sanjaya will conclude. We will leave you with the final verse, 1878. This is the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Sanjaya uvacha yatra yogeshvara krishno yatra partho dhanurdaraha tatra shrir vijayo bhutir dhruva nitir matir mama. It's a very famous verse. Because of this verse, people like to take photo of this Bhagavad Gita, this Krishna and Arjuna in the chariot, and they like to put it in their houses. So this is the meaning of that verse. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer. So Krishna is addressed as Yogeshwara, Yatra Yogeshwara, the supreme master of all mystics. He has all the energies within him. And in level 2, we will learn about these energies of the Lord in more detail. The supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. So therefore, keeping Bhagavad Gita in our house, for people who are having this kind of thoughts, they want to get opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and all that. So we can quote this verse and we can give it to them. So sometimes people like to put photos like that, copper tooling, nice big photos like that. They like to hang in the wall, they keep in their house. So this is the Shastra that comes behind that. So with that, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna, so devotee and bhakta, both are Bhagavad. So this is the 3 Bhagavad. Krishna is Bhagavad. The devotee of the Lord is always it's not separated from the Supreme Lord. He's always together with the Supreme Lord. And Krishna, he likes it more when we call him the names which are associated with his devotees. Like if we call him Yashoda Nandan, he becomes more pleased. If we call him Radhika Raman, he becomes very pleased because he always wants to be associated with his devotees. So Krishna is Bhagavad. Arjuna, the devotee, anyone who takes up this bhakti path are also Bhagavad, especially the pure devotees. And the book is also Bhagavad. The instructions of the Lord is also Bhagavad. So there are non-difference. The 3 of them have the same potency in purifying us and bringing us out of this material world. So with that, takeaway for the chapter 18, detachment of the fruits of action is key to liberation. Right? So we have sung this song many times already. Read the Gita, understand the Gita, live the Gita, and give the Gita to others. So this is the conclusion that came particularly in chapter 18. So to understand the meaning of the Gita, reciting the Gita, we get credits. Understanding the Gita, we worship Krishna by his intelligence, by our intelligence. Living the Gita, we follow the bhakti path and becoming his devotee, and give this Gita to other people, give the knowledge to other people. And Krishna is the highest goal, the ultimate destination of all transcendentalists, and bhakti is the best path in this, especially in this Kali Yuga. It's the easiest path for us to follow. And it all boils down to chanting. Krishna in Kali Yuga incarnates as his holy name. He comes as the holy name. He invests himself directly. There is no difference between Krishna and the name of Krishna. He is directly the same. It's simply our faith. When we come to that level, when just by singing the name of Krishna, Krishna will be dancing in our tongue. And this is the ultimate position where we can always remember the Lord simply by chanting the names of Krishna. All the great acharyas repeat the same message, right? Shankaracharya has said, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Muda Mate. Oh, foolish ones in this Kali Yuga, just chant Govinda, Govinda, Govinda. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this particular Maha Mantra especially for this Kali Yuga. It is mentioned in all the scriptures. So in this way, by following the Harinam, we can attain the supreme abode. So let us recite together for the last time today, in this session at least. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jai Sri Sri Bhagavad Gita Sri Sri Radha Krishna ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you everybody for listening all this time for the 18 days. So we have finally completed this. Now let's take some questions with regards to chapter 18 first, and then we will give some general, we will talk about what next, what happens after this. So any questions
Prabhu,
on chapter 18? Yes. Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. In Bhagavad Gita verse 18, chapter 18, verse 67. Okay, the Gita, the secret gospel of Gita, Krishna Paramatma said that this secret gospel of Gita should never be imparted to a man who lacks in austerity, nor to him one thing. I need more understanding on that. Verse 67.
Okay. So you have heard that. So the point about the preaching, when we speak to people, generally we want to pass this information of the detailed information of the Bhagavad Gita. We should not give to people who are envious, because Krishna says here, right, in many places, he tells Arjuna, this is secret, this information is confidential. So we can give the holy name to everybody. By giving the holy name to everybody, that's fine, but we should not explain the details of the confidentiality of the message of the Gita to people who are envious. Why? Because they will offend. They will say bad things. They will offend in their mind. And when they do that, we don't care so much. They can say all these things. But the problem is the Gita is the Supreme Lord, and the instructions are non-different. And when somebody does things like that, when somebody offends the instructions of this scripture, offends this particularly, then they get sin. They get so we want to protect people from getting sin. So we have to be a bit careful on to what level we say to people. So that's why there are a lot of confidential things. Like for example, Radha Krishna pastimes and all these things are very, very confidential. We don't tell these pastimes yet to people who are not ready to listen. It has to progressively develop. We have to progressively develop their understanding step by step until they are able to hear more. So Bhagavad Gita is generally not too bad. It's generally safe, but we can begin with the knowledge of the soul, chapter 2, like that we can talk, but more confidential aspects of it, we will explain slowly when the person is already able to understand. We want to avoid people from getting offensive. That's the idea, Mataji. You understand, Mataji?
Yeah, the confidential part you were saying that you have actually shared with us regarding the goodness, the bhakti, the route to attain liberation via the bhakti route, right?
Yes.
That is the one you were saying, right?
Yeah. That is
Okay.
bhakti is for everybody, but at the same time, there are people who cannot accept bhakti because, as I said, there are always people who will never accept certain things. They are not ready for it simply because of their karma is so bad that in this life it works against them. They've got a certain set of mind frame, they've got a certain set of thinking, they've got a certain set of way of how they behave. So to these people, what we do when people are very envious, we give them mercy by giving Krishna's mercy in a very easily acceptable way. For example, by giving Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this one, even if they say it offensively, even if they say it making in a way they are making fun, still they will get benefit. It doesn't take offense. It's very, very merciful. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra is very, very merciful. It doesn't take offense. So that's why it's a very good way of giving that. And by that, slowly, by somehow, by hearing, by some kind of sukruti, they will come to the level where they can understand these things eventually. Another very powerful method is prasadam. If somehow we give prasadam to them, that can also make lots of changes. There are many stories in our movement where there were people who are very against the devotees. They used to, if you read Prabhupada's autobiography, you will find many times in the society, the devotees, they found lots of difficulties. But simply by giving prasadam, their hearts have changed. So it works wonders. So prasadam, chanting, we give this to people in general, and then slowly they will get the affinity, slowly they will develop the offensive mentality will go away, and then they are ready to understand more and more step by step. Okay, Mataji? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So
Hare
let's
Krishna,
see.
Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhu, just now, the chapter 18 more like a continuation of chapter 17, is it? All the three modes and all that?
Yes, the beginning part, they continue further with the three modes, and then it ends up with the conclusion. There's a slight difference because in chapter 17, it's more on faith, but in chapter 18, he's now talking of, because when we talk about faith, Arjuna was worried about what's the difference. I mean, how do the people in Kali Yuga are going to handle it, because they have various types of faith. So then Krishna was addressing that. Whereas in chapter 18, now he's talking about the process of getting out of this material existence. So he begins with how we can come to the mode of goodness in terms of action. He talks about action, he talks about the knowledge, and then eventually he comes to bhakti again.
Okay, something connected lab, like
Yes.
jnana and the bhakti, you know, it's like,
Yes.
you know, remember yesterday you were explaining three modes of different worshipping, it's also connected, right? Okay.
I've explained the connection in the beginning of this lecture. If you can just later on, if you look back at the video, at the beginning part, I spoke about the connection again. So that time I spoke in detail also. You can see.
Okay, Prabhu. Okay, Prabhu. Then you also told about this Varna Ashrama, and then
Yes.
the four
Divisions of society.
Yes, four divisions of society. That is the Brahma, Brahmin, Kshatriya,
Vaishya,
Vaishnava, and that is the four society of people. The societies in, you know, the people in the society, and then also further divided into four Varna Ashrama. The difference, you know, that means the four ashrama has also embedded into the four society, is it?
No, it's like this. The four ashrams are, that's Varna and Ashram. Varna means, basically Varna literally translates to color. The four Varnas are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Whereas the four ashrams are Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. So there's a difference between, but both are part of society, and it's created by the Supreme Lord. And whether we accept it or don't accept it, this is how the Varnas people in this world are broken up in this way. So we will talk about that in detail in level 2 on how it works, what's the purpose behind it. We spoke about it also in Bhagavad Gita level 1. We talked about how the Varna is not decided based on birth. It's based on activity and nature, guna and karma. So these are the two ways how one determines one's Varna. But ashram is where we take shelter. The meaning of the word ashram means shelter. So ashram is for people who want to go beyond this material creation. So this is for those who are in the spiritual journey. So in the spiritual journey, we can take ashram as a brahmachari. We can take ashram as a grahastha. Grahastha means householder. We can also become ashram as a retired person, vanaprastha, or we can also be a sannyasi. But Krishna is telling Arjuna eventually, these things are there, but if you take the bhakti path, you don't have to worry. Any of these ashrams is good enough. Any of the varnas is good enough. Eventually, you become a bhakta and you can come back to me. So we will talk about these divisions in more detail in level 2, Mataji. I will have one session just for this.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I don't see any other questions. So gratitude. Yes.
The last one. Okay, you know, for those family men, right?
Yes.
Okay, where they got children and all these things, right? So they work hard, they strive hard to earn money to build a beautiful what they call empire for the children and for themselves. So but at the same time, they also do service to the Lord. For example, they wake up in the morning, they read their Bhagavad Gita, you know, they chant, they do the prayers and all those things. So in what kind of category they are actually in? Are they still in the passion mode?
Okay, so if one is performing bhakti yoga as per Krishna's direction, right? For example, if one is working and does everything, and then he's also chanting, they are also doing all the bhakti seva and everything for Krishna, they are eating prasadam, basically chanting and all that, then they are considered transcendental. So they are not considered within the 3 modes. Anyone who follows yoga, even if it's karma yoga, jnana yoga, whatever yoga, or anyone who follows bhakti and follows according to the scriptures, according to the rules and regulations, according to the parampara, then they are considered transcendental. Yamaraj does not touch these people. So for these people, they actually, in their next life, even if they are not successful completely, they will take a better birth and they will continue where they left off and they don't lose anything. And eventually they will return to the spiritual world. They come out of the 3 modes. Does that answer, Mataji? Does that answer, Mataji? So we will talk more about what this bhakti is all about. It begins with hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam. Simply doing these 2, we will come to the point of remembrance. And to help us in this path, there are some other things which we will hear about in level 2. There are a number of things which we can do to supplement what we are doing, chanting and hearing, where we can come to eventually the level of remembering the Lord all the time. And what I was going to say, I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, yeah. So anyway, that's that. Yes, Umamati Mataji, you have a question. Earlier slides you mentioned about irreligion to religion, what it means. Irreligion to religion. I think you're talking about the mode of ignorance, where they think that religious activity is is like an opposite, right? They think that bad activities are actually religious activities and religious activities are actually bad activities. So it's like complete opposite. They do opposite things. Nowadays, for example, in the name of religion, people do jihad. They go and kill people and they destroy people and things like that. And they think that this is religious activity. But actually, they don't understand this is not religious activity. So that's why that's an example of how people in the mode of ignorance, they actually do wrong things and they think it is religious. So, you know, This is what I meant. Is that what you meant, Mataji? Umamati Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Prabhu, the second question is about if in Hinduism, there's many scriptures and many gurus, and each has their own highness and greatness. So how, as a common individual, that we should react to that?
Okay, so we should respect everybody. That is definitely there. But respect doesn't mean we have to follow everybody. So we follow what scripture says. So the gurus may say one thing, but whether or not are they really repeating what the scriptures say? So the point of the guru is to bring us towards the Supreme Lord. And that means they will never go against scripture. This is what a real bona fide guru is. And again, to guide us, in Kali Yuga, there are many cheating people. So therefore, the 4 sampradayas are given. So we should try to follow or take a guru within the 4 sampradayas. But there are also a lot of offshoots here and there. Not to say that some of them are deviant or what, but there may be. But to be in the safe side, we should be in the sampradaya system. We should follow based on the established scripture, and we should find out what the gurus are saying. Are they really saying the same things as what the scriptures say? So, for example, Bhagavad Gita is very clear. In Hinduism, it is accepted by every branch. Everyone accepts Bhagavad Gita, but some of them they misinterpret it wrongly or something like that, and they try and they say other things. So, or they just ignore. They blatantly ignore certain instructions. They just take 1 or 2 instructions from Bhagavad Gita and they ignore the rest. So that is not right. So we should accept scripture wholly, and it should not be, accept only the head and the rest of the body you don't accept. So it's we have to be careful. So Prabhupada likes to say, that this world is made out of the cheater and the cheated. There are only 2 people, those who are cheat and those who are the cheated. So we must not fall prey to these kind of things. Before we take a guru personally, before we accept a guru personally, we can respect everybody. But before we ourselves accept personal instructions and decide to dedicate our life to that, we should find out about what the teachings are, and whether or not it is according to a bona fide sampradaya. And in this way, we should scrutinize the guru carefully before we decide to surrender. So this is what the recommendation is given. And there is a reason why there are many scriptures also. So different scriptures are given for different types of people, so that different types of people can gradually make advancement. So there are scriptures for the mode of ignorance. There are scriptures for people in the mode of passion. There are scriptures for people in the mode of goodness. All this is within the Hindu scriptures. But at the same time, there are also scriptures which are transcending the 3 modes. So that one is Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Every other scripture falls under these 3 modes. So we have to understand this, and then we have to see what's the ultimate truth. So we will talk about that also in detail in level 2. We will speak about the various scriptures which are in Hinduism, and also why so many religions in this world. We will talk about that. We will analyze the reasons behind it, and we will synthesize all this into one answer. And then that should be able to give us a better understanding, Mataji. I hope that answers.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very much.
Okay, so if there's any... Yes, Mataji.
Prabhu, the beginning of the first chapter, you were telling that there are certain conversation between Krishna and Arjuna and Sanjaya and as well Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra only speaks once in the whole Bhagavad Gita,
Yes.
is it?
Yes, he only speaks once.
Sanjaya speaks the first verse and the last verse.
The last 4 verses, the last 4 verses in the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
Not only the first verse, there were once or twice I think he spoke also. If you look at the first lecture notes, I think I've put there the number of verses which Sanjaya speaks. He describes the Virat Rupa. The first verse, the second verse, I think he speaks, and then the Virat Rupa he describes. He tells Dhritarashtra how the Virat Rupa looks like, and then the last 4 verses in this chapter.
Okay, all right. So Krishna really described the Bhagavad Gita in within that war time, within the 18 chapters. Of course, it will not be like in 18 chapters. The whole gist of the Bhagavad Gita within the speculated time before the war, or within the war, or after the war.
So it's before the war starts. The war is ready. People are standing both sides, ready to start. And then Arjuna says, right, Krishna, please bring me to the center so that I can see what's happening. Who are the people? Right. And purposely, Krishna will bring in front of Bhishma and all these people so that Arjuna will get emotional and sentimental so that he can use that as an excuse to cover him in illusion. And then he speaks the Bhagavad Gita. So this one, I'm not sure, but I've heard people say that Krishna spoke all this within 45 minutes. So, but it's all these verses. These are all the actual verses that Krishna spoke. So it's not a gist. It's exactly these verses which Krishna spoke and then the war started after that.
So, but then for us to read so much of the verses, the whole 18 chapter with so many, how many verses? 800 verses?
700 verses.
700 verses. How could he speak within 45
well, I don't
minutes?
Know. Well, again, I could say that.
I was wondering.
Well, I don't know about that. So Krishna can do many things. There are many things Krishna can do which we cannot do. So he can make stones float. Like he can just make stones float. We cannot do that. So he's Yatra Yogeshwara, right? He's the ultimate mystic. Anyway, this is just what I heard. So it's not. There's no verification on that. So it may not be true. It could be longer, but definitely not very long because the war is about to start.
So the war did not start when the Bhagavad Gita was started.
The
war was not started.
No, everybody was there watching.
So when he was preaching Arjuna, so all the opposite side also was listening, or only Arjuna was listening?
Well, everybody was watching what's happening. I don't know whether everybody could hear what they were speaking, but certainly everybody was watching what they saw Arjuna putting the bow down, dejected, and then they saw that he was having a talk, and then they were all waiting for the conch to be blown. So when the conch is blown, only the war will start. So while the conversation is going on, they are thinking, both sides are looking and thinking, oh, Arjuna looks like he's going to stop fighting. So they are just patiently waiting to see if Arjuna will let go of the fight and run away. So this is what they were watching. Not everybody could hear. I don't think everybody could hear. But the devotees of the Lord could understand what's happening. The devotees are the 5 Pandavas and Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya and Kripacharya. So these devotees are there and they could understand what's happening. And they could also see the universal form, whereas the rest couldn't.
Okay, all right. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, okay, so then we will move on. Okay, so it's already, this is the last day, so I beg for a little extra extension of time. So, Gita quiz, there will be quiz. I will send the 18th chapter quiz also, so for your try. So, there will be a graduation. I will post the details of the graduation ceremony. So it will be an online thing, I think, somewhere happening within this week, either Thursday or Wednesday. So this is, I'll let you know tomorrow. The details I'm not sure yet because of there are some people in the temple who got COVID and all. So they don't know whether the people can go in. So we will let you know tomorrow everything about that. And once the graduation is done, we will also issue you the receipts, the certificates, and we will send it to you through the WhatsApp. So don't exit the WhatsApp yet. Please remain until we give you further information. And then we want to talk about level 2. So this is for if you are interested to hear more about all this information. So we will have a level 2 class. Level 2 will not be daily. It will be once a week. So depends. I can do once a week. I can do twice a week also if everybody is really into it. But maybe for the moment, we can start with once a week. We will need to decide which day. So I'm going to send a WhatsApp link tomorrow. And in there, you can it's like the quiz. You just click there and then you give your feedback to the class. And then you can also let me know which are the days that you are not free. So we want to fix the day. We can give some flexibility once in a while, but generally we want to fix the day. The time will probably be the same timing. I think everybody's sort of comfortable with 7:45. So you just need to let me know what day you cannot make it. So that one I will send you in the link. So then you can just mention, then we can adjust, and then we can have the thing. So that's level 2. And level 2, we will talk more on topical level. So we will speak on topics. For example, why so many religions in the world? So that will be one topic. And then another topic will be like, for example, karma, the law of karma. And then another topic will be, for example, understanding varnashram. So then another topic can be on the processes of bhakti yoga, or the 9 processes of bhakti, or the 9 stages of bhakti. So like that, we will go topic by topic, and we will pull in scripture to justify and to verify. And this scripture will be from Bhagavad Gita mainly, and we will also take from other places like Srimad Bhagavatam, and also some other places in the scriptures. So we will use scriptural knowledge to explain the topics. Like in Bhagavad Gita, we are basically going from chapter 1, chapter 2, like that. So sometimes it goes from one topic to another, and then goes to another topic. So the idea Krishna has presented to Arjuna is one way. So now we are going to approach spiritual understanding from a topical perspective. So that is what level 2 is going to be about. So you can also mention, and we would request you to also read the Bhagavad Gita each week. Go through each chapter, read the this time you're going to read the Bhagavad Gita, and then you will point out any questions that you may have, so we can also spend some more time on discussing the questions, so it's in a deeper level. So that is level 2. I will give you more information on that also tomorrow. Yeah, so oops, that's it. So anyway, so that's all for today. Thank you very much for everyone's
Thank
presence.
you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you very much,
for
Prabhu. But
such an
when are you
enlightening
starting
sessions. Thank you
when are you
very
probably
much.
starting level 2?
Probably the week after next, because maybe the next week. I'm not sure. We may start next week. Not this week for sure, but next week. At least next week or the week after. I think we will start next week, most probably. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. So I hope you have all benefited from this.
Learn something.
Please forgive me for any
Certainly,
mistakes.
very beneficial,
Yeah.
Prabhu.
Please forgive
Very
me for any
enlightening.
offenses or mistakes. I may have said certain things, whatever, but I'm just trying to present the Bhagavad Gita as I've heard it, and as we have understood it, and I hope that you can all join me for level 2, and you can put your feedback in the link which I'm going to send tomorrow. You can let us know how it has benefited you, or whatever shortcomings there are. You can also let us know. Thank you so much.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you very much.
Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Haribo.
Thank you.
Prabhu,
Yes.
can we just keep in touch with you also on certain questions and all that?
Oh yes, please stay within the WhatsApp. I will be sending things on and off, and then we will get to know better. We will get to know each other better in level 2. We will have an introduction. We will talk. We will tell about ourselves. We will have more time. Level 1 has been a rush. We have been, covering all the verses within that 1 hour, within the time frame has been quite a rush. But level 2, we will take it in a more leisurely manner. We will discuss more. We will have more questions, and I will try to also arrange sessions according to your questions. So if you have certain questions which will require me to arrange an entire session for it, then I will answer these questions fully in another session. So this is some of the things I'll try to do for all of you.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you.
Haribo.
And then one more, Prabhu. Let's say you want to read Bhagavad Gita in a place where there is a that house. Which chapter is the best chapter to read?
I would say chapter. Well, there is somewhere people have told certain chapters are very good. I can't remember exactly. I can find out for you and let you know. Usually I will read chapter 12, chapter 11, chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I will usually read those, but let me check on that.
Chapter 7, 8 is it?
Chapter 7, because chapter 8 talks about death. At the time of death, it's very important one remembers Krishna. So chapter 8 is very important. So I would read chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you have no time, then just read chapter 8. If you have chapter 12, is also good. It's the ultimate pinnacle of Bhakti Yoga.
Okay, okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Prabhu.
All right. Okay, I'll see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Have a good night. And we will keep in touch. And I'll see you all in level 2. Hare Bo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.